couples or individuals come for therapy, and I say, and how's what's going on in your life affecting your intimate life, your sex life? And they'll go, oh, I'm off that. Or
Okay.
we haven't made love for 3 months, 6 months, 6 years,
Mm,
even.
mm,
So it can be a problem if both partners are happy not to be sexually intimate together. Then it's not a problem.
mm.
But more often than not, it's when one partner wants to be sexual and the other doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like that might be a question you would ask a couple, even if they're not coming to you explicitly to work with their sex life. Is that?
I would indeed,
Yeah.
yes, because sex is a subject that's really difficult to talk about.
Mm,
I know that of the huge number of counselling courses that there are, very few of them actually do anything specific about sexual relationships,
mm.
and even fewer do anything about sexual problems. And I don't mean turning people into sex therapists, because
Yeah.
that's a much more specific area, but actually people sometimes just welcome the chance to say, do you know, that's a real problem for me,
Yeah.
but they don't like to bring it up. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
difficult to say.
And that's a fascinating dilemma if the therapist is thinking, well, I'll wait for the client. The client's thinking, well, unless the therapist asks.
Yes.
And Steph, in one of your presentations when we worked together, you told a great story, and I always tell my students this story, which is like you were working with a couple, and you said to them, "Well, what did your last therapist do with you around your relationship, your sexual relationship?" And the couple said to you, "Oh, every time we brought it up, the therapist changed the subject,"
Yeah.
which is how I remember the story. Maybe it's not quite.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but like for us also to watch that in ourselves, like maybe the client does want to, and maybe is giving us those signals, and can we be open to that? And
Yeah. And quite often clients have gone, for example, to see their doctor, wanting to bring up the subject of, I've got a sexual problem, but actually the doctor not hearing either,
right,
because they're unsure then what to do about it.
yeah,
And maybe very uncomfortable talking about sexual matters. And that's surprising. We assume doctors are going to be okay with that, but they're just human beings, and they've got their own awkward moments and awkward subjects to talk about.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think there's something about our culture here in the UK where we get easily embarrassed, I
Yes.
guess, or like there's something in our culture that might also be in us
Yeah.
as practitioners, or our client might kind of try and ask, but it comes out all back to front. We're not quite sure what they're asking us, and it could get lost that way
Yeah.
too. Or,
Yeah. Well, one of the first things about either being able to deal with sexual problems or even just to talk about it with clients, because often that in itself helps, is giving clients permission to talk about it. By asking them about their sexual relationship, you're actually saying this is an okay subject to talk about.
yeah,
Even though it's maybe a very private one, it may. And from the therapist's point of view, I think often there's that sense of, am I being too intrusive? Is this too private an area to talk about? But actually, it's often a big relief to the client to be able to say what's going on in their sex lives.
for sure.
Yeah.
I know that for me, like those kind of things, that kind of cultural embarrassment and the am I pushing too hard? I often have to take a deep breath and think, right,
Yeah. Go.
here we go, and let's try and do this in a kind of a helpful way. And I wonder if that's also true for any of the colleagues that are joining us live on the site. Like, what's it like to ask that question, or do we find ourselves not? Or
Well, I mean, what I know is, of course, is that the most common sexual problem that couples face is loss of desire or inhibition of sexual desire. And it's also, that's the problem that is mostly tied up either with something else that's going on in the rest of their life or something that's going on in their relationship. And so doing the work with the relationship may free them up to think about why they're not being sexual together. So it is something that counsellors and therapists can tackle. I'm not saying that they would then do the bit about getting them going again sexually, because that really is the specialist sex therapist, but actually talking about what's going on in your life that's caused you to lose interest in sex.
Yeah, so that's the bit that we work well with, like the relationship, this maybe like the stress that someone might have at their work, or like other, maybe someone's getting bullied somewhere, or like there could be,
I mean, lots of reasons. Just, for example, having a young family,
right?
Disturbed sleep, not feeling your best, can just think, oh, I really can't be bothered with that side of life. But actually, people tend to make an assumption that it's, oh, we've been together 20 years, we've been together 30 years, it's bound to change. Well, yes, it's bound to change, but actually neither age nor boredom is the underlying cause, because newlyweds, people in a new relationship, can go off sex. There are lots of reasons why the sexual relationship doesn't work. And of course, although we assume there is so much information about sex in our society, so many sexual images and so on, and yet if people have got a problem with sex, the last thing they want to read about is sex. So it sort of becomes a vicious circle. They'll see an article in a magazine and then they'll go, I don't really want to read that. Or if my partner sees me reading that, that might start a conversation that I'm really too uncomfortable to have with them. And so, although you can assume that the information is out there, you can't assume that people have read it. And I don't find these days that clients are much better informed about sexual functioning and their sex lives than they were 20 years ago. The only difference is that they may well get some very unrealistic expectations from watching pornography. And I know that someone's going to be talking about sex and porn addiction later. But that is very much one of the factors and one of the areas that I will ask couples about, because watching videos in particular of sexual activities can mean that the partner who's doing that really goes off sex with a partner because it's not as exciting, it doesn't give their brain the same stimulation, or it's harder work because you've got to get a partner aroused.
Right, yeah.
Whereas watching something on the internet, you don't.
Yeah, so it's much easier, much less work. And I mean, that could be something counterintuitive for us as therapists. We might think if someone is watching porn, then they're likely to be more sexually active, but it could be the other way around, actually, or with their partner anyway.
Yeah, that's right. They may be sexual active themselves watching the pornography, but actually not with the partner. Yeah. And I mean, one of the sexual difficulties that happens when people watch a lot of porn is that the male may have erectile problems, so that they don't have a problem with the pornography, but actually when it comes to a real partner, they have difficulties. They struggle to get erections, or they struggle to maintain them. But actually, if they stop watching the pornography for a period of time, then they recover.
Right. Wow. So there's something about having some abstinence around the pornography can help the actual physical function. Yeah.